Hey there, this is Danny Ray Crum Jr. with Psych Monkey 911, looking over my shoulder, make sure I don't mess this up too badly. I won't tell you what take this video is to finally get this right, but suffice it to say, it's not the first. In any case, so in the previous video, we talked about the 3 E's of trauma that help you identify stress levels. You know, do they hit your norm, or are they becoming problematic, and or have they become traumatic? Okay. Well, in this video, I'd like to talk to you about the 3 hallmarks of trauma that help you recognize and understand whether this is your norm, this is becoming problematic, or has risen to a level of traumatic. Okay, and help you understand how exactly that's impacting you. Okay. So with that said, let's talk about our acronym for today. Some of you might have had AP English, read the book Moby Dick. Remember a character named Captain Ahab? Well, I couldn't come up with anything that clever, so we're going to call this Cousin IAB, okay? IAB is your acronym for today's lesson. I stands for intrusive thoughts, the A stands for avoidant behaviors, and the B, as in boy, stands for body arousal, okay? So let's talk about those 3 hallmarks, okay? Now, a lot of the experts list those off as the hallmarks of post-traumatic stress, or even go so far as to say post-traumatic stress disorder. 1, I don't like the word disorder as a generalized statement. And 2, I believe in the research from the trauma literature that talks about trauma or trauma stress as being para-traumatic, which is to say there is a piece of it that's happening before, during, and after. Okay, so para is sort of surrounding that event and experience, thus the effect. Okay, so with that said, intrusive thoughts are exactly what they sound like. These are thoughts that interrupt, disrupt, interfere, possibly even cause a complete stop to where your mind is at right now, to what you're doing right now, basically your functioning. Okay, these are thoughts that, depending on what level they're at, you may still be able to function with them. Good example might be worrying about what to make for dinner tonight. You're still able to do your job, do your homework. Yeah, the longer it takes to finish this task, you're getting a little hungry, which makes you think about dinner more. But thinking about dinner did not completely stop you, interfere, or cause the quality of your focus at that time on the other task at hand to be significantly affected. Okay? Now, when does a thought become problematic? That's a very personal thing. It's a very specific, subjective judgment that only you can make for yourself. I'm not making that judgment. But when a thought continues to pop in to the point that, man, I just can't seem to get this English paper going. I can't seem to get this English paper done. Maybe these thoughts are becoming more than just your norm. Maybe they're becoming problematic, okay? So when does a thought become traumatic? Again, very personal, very subjective. But if your anxiety, if those are your thoughts, if your anxiety level is so high, let's say you're getting ready to take a flight tomorrow and you're not the biggest fan of flying, okay? If your anxiety level, if the intrusive thoughts about all the things that could happen, not even things that you necessarily have evidence for, but all those intrusive thoughts get you to worrying so much that it's affecting your breathing, that, God forbid, you have an anxiety attack. God forbid it's interfering with your sleep, okay? Maybe that's rising to a level that is traumatic. And maybe, you should have paid attention before, should have tried to help calm yourself down. And we'll talk about things to address that in the next video. But so intrusive thoughts that get to that level that start to disrupt, if not cause a total stop to your healthy functioning, your daily functioning, that's when we might say it's traumatic. All right, so the next hallmark would be avoidant behaviors. Okay, what are avoidant behaviors? They're exactly what they sound like. Question is, are they consciously intentional or do they seem unintentional? Because there's no accident, people. I'm telling you, I'm a big fan of that belief. I want to give credit to Einstein, who said there were no accidents. I may be quoting the wrong guy, but I think our behaviors always have a purpose, always have a plan, whether it's on our conscious level or subconscious level. So that's my professional bias stated right there. But avoidant behaviors are behaviors that keep you from doing that thing you're supposed to be doing. Need to do, should do. Again, all those are very value-laden terms. You need to decide what's necessary for your life, what should be done, blah, blah, blah. What's life essential to you? Now, the common ground, of course, is we all need to breathe, eat, eliminate, I believe is the proper term. Okay, so there are certain functions that we need to do that we have in common. But beyond that, those personal, social things, those family things, those occupational things, that's subjective to you. Only you can tell me if what you're doing right now, playing ping pong, playing video games, going out in the garden, is actually avoiding what you should be doing, which is, sorry guys, I'm getting a dry throat, which is checking that leak that keeps on hitting the ceiling before all of a sudden that drywall gets so wet it crashes in. Okay, so avoidant behaviors really compel you to ignore, neglect, etc. Maybe something you should do, maybe yourself. Okay, so that's when avoidant behaviors become problematic. Avoidant behaviors may also become problematic if you should be talking to someone about something, whether it be a friend, family, loved one, I don't know, professor. Pick your task at hand. Oftentimes I'll tell my children, who are older teenagers now, it's their responsibility that if they're not going to get that assignment in on time, or they don't think that grade was fair, they need to go address that now before that grade is finalized, before it's too late and they start losing points. Okay, well, if they avoid it and they procrastinate and they get stuck with it, that's that natural consequence, right? Okay, so now their GPA is not high enough to get a scholarship at an Ivy League school or what have you. So avoidant behaviors, only you can decide the impact, because you're the only one who can give it that judgment. Now, sure, trained professionals can look from the outside and say, hey, this seems like, but even if we're absolutely definitive, say, hey, you're being avoidant. That's our choice of terms. You've got to figure out what's true for your narrative. But let's assume that the trained professionals are correct and you're avoiding something. That tells you that your level of stress has exceeded what might be normal for you, unless you're a normal procrastinator. In that case, we might be talking a whole different personality type of thing, not necessarily pathological, but something you want to consider, is this okay, is this not okay? Another video. But those avoidant behaviors, if they're compelling you, causing you to neglect or avoid something that you should address, then you got to decide, has that become problematic to the point that I do need to pay attention to it? And probably, really, ideally, it would have been better if you were proactive down here. Okay, I got to get my hands balanced. Okay? But if you don't address it here when it's simply problematic, and nothing is simply, okay, but problematic, does it rise to that next level? Okay? So, for example, the intrusive thought about flying on an airplane. Okay? If I'm terrified of flying on an airplane, and I can take it or leave it, you want to see me terrified, ask me to be a passenger in a car. I don't care if you're the safest driver in the world, okay? You could be that Allstate guy, okay? Nah, not getting in your car, not digging it. But if I don't do something about it, let's say, for example, I know I'm going to have to ride somewhere with somebody or fly somewhere, okay, and I don't have my pilot's license, so I won't be the one in control. Well, then maybe I need to talk to my doctor or my therapist or my support network, and we'll get into that support network in the next video. Maybe I need to do whatever I need to do to get a handle on those intrusive thoughts. Because if I don't control them, they will control me. Okay? Next hallmark, body arousal. That is not the pleasure state that you might think it is, although there are delusional levels. Okay? However, notice I said the word delusional. All right, so I dislike the term arousal. I'd rather they had said body extremes, okay? But I guess that doesn't sound as catchy. So the hallmark of body arousal, a lot of times in the diagnostic manuals, you'll see terms like excited or excitated, agitated, elevated states of being, that kind of thing. And a lot of times these are talking about manic phases, delusional states, that kind of thing. And during those states, you could feel good. You could feel complete pleasure. You could feel completely invulnerable. Top of the world, okay? A person in a manic phase may feel so untouchable, so amazing that they don't fear any consequences, no outcomes, you know? Spend all their money and don't worry about how they're going to pay mortgage next month, okay? That's an example. However, the natural consequences, the natural outcome of that kind of state, that kind of body state, is very negative, okay? And you need to be able to recognize that. Now, how do you recognize that when you're in the middle of that state? Agreed. But this is why we talk about it when we're not in that state. This is why we talk about it before, God forbid, we get to that state. Because maybe when we're in that state, we'll recall something like this. And it helps us for just a moment to interrupt that state and maybe start to get a handle on things. However, body arousal, again, remember I like the term body extremes better, could also be the depths, that opposite direction, that severe depression, that severe anxiety that prevents you from getting out of bed, taking care of your hygiene. You can't leave the house because you can't stop checking that doorknob or the oven, okay? That kind of thing. Now, granted that could also be defined in the DSM as the agitated, elevated states, okay? I just think the terms are a little misleading for what the state in reality is. So, but in a nutshell, that's your 3 hallmarks. That's your 3 hallmarks to recognize your stress level. Is it my everyday? Is it problematic? Is it traumatic? And to understand it, let alone understand the level that it's at, okay? So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to wish you well. I hope this was interesting. I hope this was informative. Please feel free to give me some feedback. You can email me at psychmonkey911@gmail.com. All right, I look forward to doing some more videos for you guys. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.